Hi there. Episode 55. Is WA becoming the preferred place to live and invest? That's our topic tonight. Welcome to our property podcast, Property Avenue WA, where the focus is all things property in Western Australia. He's Oscar D'Souza, I'm TV, and we just have a passion about things in the WA property world. So that's what we're all about. We do a live stream tonight for those that may be watching. That's what we're about tonight. And then tomorrow, for those that don't have the time or don't want to sit here and just watch us, you can listen to our podcast available through all your normal podcast accesses. That becomes available tomorrow. So that's what we're about. And as I say, the focus is Western Australia. We don't have a guest tonight, but there's lots of good things to talk about, and there's a range of things. Oscar's got some interesting facts about the current market. We'll have a chat about the Reserve Bank. And, of course, our topic in particular is WA becoming the preferred place to live. It's really interesting. I read a couple of articles over the last week or two, and we had our guest last week, Jody Bevan from Bendigo Bank. So we sort of stuck to more focused around the banking and what Bendigo is about. Tonight we're sort of a little broader, and so I thought that would be a good topic to discuss, because I think it's probably there's a few things that justify that headline. The other thing that we're going to do is obviously Oscar's stats, and he'll review the rental market and, of course, the sales market here in West Australia. And, of course, it was really interesting last week where I think the stats were in Geraldton, and it's not a Geraldton show, but 40-something properties available for rent in Geraldton. And I had a number of people. I had some discussions during the week which were intriguing to sort of back that up, Oscar. So we'll talk about that. And the other thing being is the mum and dad bank. Is it on the rise? I know I've discussed the mum and dad bank a few times, and I am still following up to get a guest on with regard to that, but we'll just touch on that a little bit. And we, of course, want to discover the answers to your questions. If you've got any property questions, by all means, send them through on our live chat line, or perhaps send us an email, or you can send a text via the mobile 0437993294, and we'll respond as much as we can. And we've got a golf competition coming up this weekend in Geraldton. It's the Geraldton Amateur Open. Great numbers, lots and lots of visitors, and Property Avenue WA, together with Dedicated Property Management, together with Champion Bay Settlements, are sponsoring Friday's event. And already there's over 80 people on Friday playing, which is, I think the club captain said to me, that's well above our figures from the last 3-4 years. So pretty exciting stuff going on. And then, I love this, there was an article I read the other day, the Shittiest Town Award. Can you believe it? That is true. Here in WA, the Shittiest Town Award, and I'll tell you who won that. And then, of course, property headlines around the traps. We'll have a look at those if we have time, and the if question. It's a little ripper tonight. I just think, I actually asked my young brother, give me an if question, and he came up with this one, and I'm looking forward to it. OD, welcome, mate. Great to see you. How's things?
Miss Divina, good evening to you. Good evening to viewers, and obviously good evening or good day to our listeners via the podcast. Mate, I'm absolutely fantastic. As you just mentioned, there's lots of stuff for us to discuss so far as all the real estate news that's going on in WA, in particular Perth, but we do always have a quick discussion about Geraldton, and we really are in a very, very interesting spot in our real estate market. It's we haven't been the market conditions are absolutely changing, and I will expand on that very shortly. But yeah, mate, look, it's been a really, really busy week, I guess busy weekend, and you did give me permission to quickly discuss, apart from the last couple of days of work, the weekend of Friday, Saturday and Sunday, what it is that I've been doing with my time. And so very quickly, I attended a Speakers Institute, which is a global organisation actually founded here in Australia, but it's a global organisation called the Speakers Institute, and I attended a 3-day boot camp, which was Friday, Saturday and Sunday. A very, very intensive professional speaking boot camp that starts pretty much at 8 o'clock in the morning and can finish anywhere from 8 or 9 o'clock at night as well. So very intensive. It's meant to be a transformational journey for people at all levels of professional speaking, of public speaking as well, to ultimately improve their skill base. So there were people there that had never ever jumped on stage. There were people there that had done a little bit, and then there were even some more advanced people. But across the board, it really was a very intensive 3-day boot camp to improve your skills in the area. And mate, it was so much more. Honestly, it was so much more than just improving, speaking skills and telling your story and sharing that time with 21 or 22 other people. I loved it, mate. I absolutely loved it. For anyone that might be considering improving their skill base in that area, Speakers Institute are absolutely the way to go. And I'm extremely motivated. I'm humbled and very excited that I had the opportunity to do that. So that was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was pretty exhausted come Monday morning, but very happy all the same.
Hey, that sounds like I know you spoke to me about it, and it sounded like a lot of fun. But I will tell you, just digressing, and I will talk to you later about that. But obviously, what I will tell you, we've already had a couple of people say hello, and our podcast producer, the Hadj, he likes the cap. He likes the cap. So I've got one set aside for him. And our guest last week, who's a regular, Mr. Jody Bevan, the Bendigo bank man, he also said hello. So great to have people on board. And he made mention about episode 54. I said, no, you're on episode 54. This is episode 55. But he reckons he was concentrating so much he forgot what episode he was on last week.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, what's the football's been good, and I will quickly, other than go to property, I will tell you, I happened to play golf with an ex-AFL footballer the other day, and he was I asked him how he was going, and he kicked 1 goal. Well, I've just found out today through another source that he kicked 11 goals on the weekend for the Northampton boys. And
wow.
The reason why I'm saying that is not so much about him kicking 11 goals, which is pretty exciting, but we just need to be aware. I've spoken to people during the week, and we need to be really aware of what's going on. I spoke to a lady on the weekend, have only just got their power back on Friday, right? So we're talking about the cyclone for all those people in the city and all those people in other parts. Believe me when I tell you, we need to be on the ball and be aware and be very conscious. And I'm trying to follow and do something about this to maintain this awareness. But please be aware that there are people out there still doing it damn hard, people with no power. There's not a long way away from having their place reconstructed. I did speak to a friend, a client of ours in Kalbarri, and she said the place is being cleaned up, but if you're looking for accommodation, that's a different story. So there's a long way to go. And I think, as we've said before with other natural disasters, this one's closer to home. It's not just Northampton and Kalbarri, but there's a lot of other areas. And I noticed the boys on their AFL Rams site that are trying to look after the community, because there's several boys that play AFL. Patrick Cripps for Carlton, for example. Of course, Josh Kennedy for West Coast Eagles, and there are others, Liam Ryan. Those guys have all got connection with Northampton. They're trying to do something about that, but it's an awareness thing. Be very much aware that this is still happening, and people, this is going to go on for a while. And if you can help in some way, please do. So that's my pleasure. That's my little plug for tonight. But, mate, with regard to that, I suppose we'll get on to topic 1. With regard to the stats, where are we at with the stats? It's been interesting.
Look, what's really good about the stats or having that information TV at hand is that we know it's factual. It is actual data that's been collated, basically over the last couple of weeks. So the good news there is that it's factual and it's not made up stuff. But what I also do, as you know, is I'm in touch with the real estate agents every other day, and I still work with a few offices around the Perth metropolitan area as a consultant. And so I'm actually seeing, aside from the statistics, I'm actually seeing what's going on the ground. So just very quickly, the statistics still, both in the sales market and the rental market, is still showing very, very high transactions. So there's still lots of deals being done, both for rentals and also for sales. Almost in the last 7 days, almost another 1,000 sales through Perth. This time last year, that same in the same week, it was 588. So and obviously we had come out of the COVID, the initial COVID shock period this time last year. So our market started to bounce out of that, probably better than what we thought. And then since that time, as we know, it's absolutely skyrocketed. So, but again, almost 1,000 sales, which is really, really high activity. What we are seeing though, TV, is that there is certainly an increase in supply greater than what we have seen any time over the last 6 months. So right now, and including last week, our number of listings went just over the 9,000 mark, and previously it was down as low as I think about 7,500 listings, and it was super, super tight. And that's when we were seeing those market conditions that had that FOMO that we spoke about, where the buyer activity for such a short amount of stock was just insane. You know, you had 40, 50 groups of people through a home open, you had several offers, and then you had above the asking price outcomes for the sellers. So we've seen an increase in supply. And what that seems to be doing to our buyers is when they know now that there's more alternatives than just the one property, they really are taking their foot off the gas. That, in fact, is actually a really, really good thing, them having a bit more choice, because it was unsustainable and unhealthy what our market was doing for the best part of this year. So it's actually good to see that the pedal has come off the metal a little bit. And that's... The rental market, again, it's still very, very strong. You know, 700 or 800 homes leasing every single week. Our vacancy rate is still very tight. It's bang on that 1% mark. So we haven't really seen a massive increase, or in fact, we haven't really seen any increase in the supply of rentals. But I would say, just with the other property management agencies that I deal with around Perth, all property managers are definitely reporting that the number of people through their home opens and the number of applications coming in certainly has slowed down a little bit. So it's not slow. I'm not saying it's slow, but it's slowed down from what we experienced in the first quarter of this year. So, and Geraldton, you mentioned Geraldton at the start of the show as well. 40-something rentals last week in the whole of Geraldton in terms of supply. That number as at today is 48. Which, as we know, it's such a ridiculous number. It's a very hard place to find a rental in Geraldton. And going back about 5 years ago, when I had my own rental business up there, when we had an oversupply, we had 420 properties available, 420. And today it's 48. So I think the stats really do tell the story there. But across the board, down here in Perth, and in fact, I think through the regions, there's still a lot of deals being done, but that crazy buyer FOMO, that fear of missing out, has certainly taken a backward step.
Hey, just a question with regard to you talking about I'm up in Geraldton at the moment because I'm playing removalist and all sorts of things at the moment. But I spoke to a friend of mine, was seeing him regarding a sea container. And he said, we're just really, really busy because people don't have a home to live and therefore are hiring sea containers to store their gear because they've got nowhere to go. And then they are couch surfing and whatever the case be. I saw a mate of mine who was asking for some assistance, and I borrowed a trailer off him. And, I paid for a trailer to hire a trailer off him. And similar situation, he said people are buying trailers, hard to get hold of because they're setting them up as camper vans and all sorts of things because there's nowhere to live. So there's two areas that you wouldn't think about the impact they would have with regard to the property market, and yet very much they do. So it's an intriguing time, and it hasn't really differed from the last 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 episodes that we've been talking about this, and probably longer than 20 episodes, but it's certainly a very different world. And I remember when we were talking 60 properties in Geraldton available for rent, thinking, wow, that's low. Now we've dropped another 20. It's quite staggering. And I think when it's such low figures like that, it is still relative per capita when you look at how low the figures are in Perth. It's really not any different. It's just a bigger volume because there's a bigger population.
Yeah, just going back, I mean, I know back from my time when I had my rental business in Geraldton, the normal market where the supply basically met the level of demand, I know is 160 to 180 properties. That's what's considered a normal market in Geraldton, again, where that level of demand is around about that level of supply. So to be down at 48 properties, again, it's pretty obvious where it's at. It's an absolute crisis. Look, I think something else that's a real problem, TV, both in Perth but also in the Midwest, and I dare say the Southwest as well. We don't have a solution for the next 6 months. Like that's the real problem. Like there's no justifiable or predictable increase in supply any time that we can see over the next 6 months. We can see towards the very end of the year, and certainly in the first half of next year, we can see that there'll probably be an increase in supply, because a lot of those properties that have been built as a result of these building grants, a lot of those are going to come out of the ground, and either tenants will move into those properties or owners will move into those properties, and that will then mean that the properties that they leave to go to their new properties will either be sold or they'll go onto the rental market. So yes, in about 6 months' time, I think we can predict, and the good commentators are predicting, that there will be an increase in supply. But right now, and for the next 6 months, definitely the next four to 5 months, there's no relief in sight. I don't know where any of these other properties are going to come from. I can only actually see that crisis, and definitely so far as the rental market, I can only actually see it getting a bit worse than what it is. It certainly isn't going to get better.
I know there's going to be, we talk about you just made comment then about, I was going to ask exactly that question, will it change with the building? And you've answered that already. But I remember a couple of episodes or so ago, I made point about the number of government housing properties that were waiting for renovation. They were vacant. No one in them, and I think there was something like 150. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I think off memory it was 150 something properties have been refurbished that at that stage hadn't had anybody in them, and they were still it was just ridiculous. It'd be interesting to follow that up and just see where that's at as well, and whether because you just haven't heard anything at a government level of what's going on there at all. I know they talk about the hospital issues and the medical issues, but seriously, this has got to be, in some ways, we're entering into winter. If we've got a hospital issue and we've got people out of homes, isn't that going to be, got the possibility of putting more pressure on the hospital world, purely simply because people are not living in good conditions, not eating properly, not being properly looked after, and then the ongoing impact on that is health. So surely they go hand in hand. Instead of saying we're not going to worry about property at the moment because we've got enough on our plate, that I know we weren't totally impressed with that flashpoint last week when they were talking about it, but the fact being is, the reasoning just didn't make sense, because I think in lots of ways it goes hand in hand. People got a roof over their head, living in a good place. Surely that's got to help things in a medical sense as well. Just a thought.
It helps. I think it helps in the medical sense. I think it also helps in the law enforcement area as well, because there is an absolute direct correlation between people living on the street and the level of crime that occurs as the homeless numbers rise. So, and that's not my stat. That's something that I've read pretty much week in, week out. And if you talk to any police officer, I think you'll find that is the case. Homelessness increases means an increase in crime. I don't think there's any other way to really sum it up, though. We have to be quite brutal, and our state government has just ducked and weaved every time in the last 6 months, including the lead up to the election, when the topic of housing has come up. That they really have, and it's a disgrace that it is not more of a topic than what we've got. I know we've got the health sector issues. I know that we've got the COVID issues and the borders and quarantine. I know that we've got all that. I don't know what they need to do, TV. Maybe get more people, get more hands on deck that can actually sit around the table with the private sector. If they want to involve the private sector, sit around the table, come up with a plan, and get onto it. We've just seen a lot of ducking and weaving. We not only have a rental crisis, but we've also got a trade shortage as well. So for all these properties that need to be built, for all these properties that are already built but need to be refurbed, we've got to find some sort of solution, because 6 months without a roof over your head is a long time to wait and see what will happen at the end of the year. So I'm grateful that that's not me. I wouldn't want that to be anyone that I know, but I think it's a lot more real than the state government is prepared to accept.
Yep. Hey, the other thing that I was going to mention, and I know we'll get to our topic in a second, but the Reserve Bank today made some announcements. Would you like to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, very quickly. So the Reserve Bank has left rates unchanged, so I don't think there was any surprise there. They still maintain that there is not going to be any increase in official interest rates until 2024. However, you talk to every bank, you talk to every economist, and every other economist is saying surely they've got to bring that forward, and that probably means sometime in 2023. We've also seen all banks, those interest rates, those locked-in loans, and JB would know better than me, but I think the 4-year locked-in interest rates and any of the 5-year terms, those have already gone up, because they're factoring in that I think an interest rate rise is going to happen a bit quicker than what they thought 6 months ago. And remembering, TV, I was a speculator towards the end of last year, suggesting that I really am certain that interest rates are going to increase a bit sooner than the Reserve Bank has said, largely fueled by, number one, the housing market across the country, because it was just going a bit crazy, and making money a bit more expensive is one way to slow that down. But then the other thing is that we've got our own boom going on over here in WA, outside of the real estate market, and I'm obviously referring to the mining sector. So, I know that they want inflation to be a certain level before they even consider lifting official interest rates. But while the banks themselves are leading the charge, they know what's coming, and the Reserve Bank is. They're saying that they're watching the usual indicators, I guess, but no, they're standing firm and still suggesting that rates will not rise officially till 2024.
Which we will go on to our topic. Is WA becoming the preferred place to live and invest? And I've sort of read a few different articles regarding this, and hence why I thought that's a good that's something we could discuss, because it's certainly been something that we've sort of looked at. We've looked at the fact that investors, there was comment before that the investors weren't coming into the WA market. Perhaps that our assessment was perhaps that was to do with the moratorium that was happening, and everybody that wanted to invest going, well, hang on, why am I going to invest in property if I can't get my rental income? And so now that's perhaps changed. But I think there's a lot of things with the latest, and we don't wish anything on our Victorian neighbours, but what they are going through, both in a business sense and as a lifestyle, it's just everything's blown up in front of their faces yet again. If you're in business over there, particularly hospitality, my God, how do you recover from that? And you think you're going easy, and yet here we are. We have a lockdown for 3 days. And we go, oh my God. And yet so I sort of look at the situation that pretty much what you're saying. We've got a booming economy. We've got a mining industry that's just going gangbusters, and there's talk of other projects coming on board, et cetera, et cetera. So there's been commentary to suggest that WA economy is going to be going along quite nicely for a while, and there's a lot of projects to maintain that. Now, we wouldn't want to have too many issues like Victoria in a hurry, because that could change quickly. But our isolation in some ways, we don't have a huge population in the scheme of things. We don't necessarily rely in the investment market with regard to international as much as perhaps New South Wales and Victoria, or Sydney and Melbourne in particular. I refer to it as clean air with what we've got over here, weather-wise and everything else. We've got some great choices. You can go from the extreme. If you really enjoy the cold, you can go down south. If you like the in-between, you've got somewhere like the Midwest region. And then, of course, if you like a bit of warm weather, that a lot of people do during the winter months, you head north. And it's all in one state, you know. So there's so much to offer. Do you reckon that is the case? People are seeing WA as the preferred option?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think they're seeing it as the preferred option to live for their own lifestyle, and certainly from an investment point of view as well. I reckon that the investor interest at the moment is as high as it's been in the last 12 months, maybe the last 12 to 18 months. But I have to qualify that and say I still don't think it's high. Comparatively from where it needs to be, and given the conditions that we've got in terms of low prices, we've got an amazing rental market with rising rents, and we've got very cheap interest rates, which we touched on before. Those are the three ingredients for a really attractive investment opportunity so far as real estate's concerned. So we've got all those boxes ticked. And yeah, I think there is certainly an increased awareness as to the investment potential for WA. And yeah, I think we've got a more investor interest than we have any time in the last 18 months, but it's still not high. And it could really be higher. The other thing, based on those stats of yours from a couple of weeks TV, is net migration out of both Victoria and Sydney, and the big pull obviously was Queensland. Like, people were heading up towards the Gold Coast. Yep,
yeah, there was, but they all of a sudden seemed to think that there was a where did I read? I'm just looking now. I read an article. I think it might have even been the West Australian, where they did a survey. There was a particular group that did a survey, and of the people that were looking at a favoured capital city, Perth was it. Perth was the favourite. Something like 78% of people or something had selected Perth as the best place to invest, because it's still affordable. It's still very affordable. When you look at what you'd buy here in WA, we'll use Perth particularly, but even in the regional areas, it's still very, very affordable. We sit there and go, oh, all that price has increased. But in the scheme of things, when you compare that to the East Coast, wow. And the rental return you're getting, pretty good yield.
Yeah, and then that capped with the ridiculously low interest rates. Honestly, it's just got every ingredient of a successful property investment for rental return, but also capital growth. The other thing as well, which we don't really talk about much these days, but I do remember it because I know when I left Perth in 2009 to head up to Geraldton, that shift in us as having entertainment places to go, to have restaurants, nightclubs, bars, underground bars, bigger shopping centres and all that. From an entertainment point of view and from a things to do point of view, the last 10 years has seen Perth change dramatically. So what we see today and what we're very used to is nowhere near what it was like 10 years ago. They used to call it Dullsville, I think, and maybe rightly so 10 years ago, but it's not that these days. TV, it's it's a pretty awesome place to be, and there's lots of places that that just about everyone's got to go to that they've never even tried once, because there's so many new places. So it's a far different landscape from a social point of view than what we saw 10 years ago.
The core logic figures for February, 15% of the Perth property sales were investors.
Yeah.
Accounted for investors, right? So the 15% of the sales, and that when you know how I love stats, in comparison to Sydney, which is 30%. So we're still a long way away in the scheme of things.
What period is that over? Is that the first quarter?
That was February. That was in February.
Yeah.
Right, for the month of February.
Yeah.
But I just think the fact of what we have to offer, and certainly even when it comes to international buyers, although I haven't seen too many international buyers happening at the moment, and if they are, they'll be doing it from a distance. But certainly interstate buyers, certainly interstate interest, and you talk to real estate agents across the board, and they're certainly making that commentary that there is no shortage. And the other part that's intriguing with that is that I'm having people that are inquiring with me on a private basis, where they're looking at buying or they're looking at selling privately, and the people they are talking about, so the sellers are discussing interstate buyers who are buying for investment purposes.
Yeah. No, it is really good to see, that increased level of investor interest. But again, it's not at that desirable level where it needs to be. And look, if there is a possible solution there, it's just not going to be quick enough. But if we see that investor interest rise from 15 to 18 and then to 20% over the next 6 months, the good news with that is that that's going to increase supply to the rental market. And we definitely need an increase in supply to the rental market when those investors buy those properties and obviously are looking for tenants. So to that extent, it's good. But that's more of a trickle effect. We need something much quicker, much faster over the next quarter, basically over the next 2 to 3 months, so we can keep people off the streets and keep a roof over people's heads whilst we embrace the winter that we've just started. So
I've got a friend of mine who is from Wongan Joanne, and she said, "Hi TV. Did the cyclone affect the amount of rentals in Geraldton?" So the figures that you were talking about, has that had an impact on the property market when it comes to the rental side of things in the Geraldton region? I would suggest yes, but you might be able to tell me more. Have you got some more specifics with regard to that?
Look, I don't have any specific stats on that, but what I do know is that after the cyclone came through Kalbarri and Northampton, I was doing some work through Geraldton, and me trying to get even just 1 or 2 nights accommodation, just short-term accommodation, the rates jumped by 50% than what I was paying before the cyclone. So, and I think that was just because there was just a huge spike in demand. There were lots of people coming up from Perth that would, because they just didn't have the contractors and stuff in Geraldton. So lots of people come up from Perth and they need someone to stay on a short-term basis. So there's lots of those guys in the motels, and suddenly those room rates went from $100 a night to $150 a night. So certainly an increase in demand there. I dare say that there would have been an increased pressure on the rental market in Geraldton for people that couldn't live in Kalbarri anymore, or couldn't live in Northampton, or because it's going to take a long time to rebuild these areas that have been affected. It's not unthinkable that a company could take out a lease on a house or a few houses for 6 months or for 12 months. So my gut feel is I reckon that would have had an increased pressure on the Geraldton rental market. And we absolutely have seen since the cyclone has come through that the number of available properties in Geraldton has dropped again. So I think all those facts kind of marry up that the cyclone would have placed some more pressure on the rental market. Absolutely.
I had reason. I'm trying to think who it was. I don't know whether it was one of our guests, but not sure whether did we have Henry before the cyclone or after the cyclone? Henry Van Til from Ray White. I can't recall, but I think it might have been before somehow. I've got a feeling, but I thought I heard someone had brought to my attention there was something like 40 families had moved to Geraldton after the cyclone. So that would have, I don't know to what extent, whether they moved to homes they already had here or they were renting or whatever the case would be. But that's what it was something we obviously need to check up. But it would have to have some impact on on the marketplace here in Geraldton when it comes to rental. I would think, and not just your Calbarry, but as I say, see Mininu. I was talking to a client the other day with regard to Mininu. Got a huge whack there, and of course there are areas that just haven't had the publicity. Perendry had a terrible time. And it's my intention to try and contact the respective CEOs and just see if they can give us an update and how they are all progressing and how can we help perhaps with regard to an awareness of these communities that don't get the publicity as much as say, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the Calbarry thing because it's horrible and I've got some fabulous friends and clients up there, but it's just an awareness thing of what's actually going on, because I don't think people realise how broad, and certainly when I'm talking to Joe, who just asked that question then, certainly they're involved in insurance, and she sort of indicated there's areas out that way that also got impacted by the cyclone. So it really whacked a lot of people far and wide, not just the Midwest on its own, but although it obviously the Midwest region copped the brunt of it, in particular Calbarry and Northampton. Chatton Valley.
I wish there was, I mean, we can bring a little bit of awareness to it. The fact that, hey, the show's not over there. There's still lots of work to do. And our little podcast is, and our little live stream is only what?
I just remembered I haven't done our disclaimer.
Oh, okay.
Kick it.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, it'd be great if the media could really keep this at the front of people's minds, just from an awareness point of view. Not forgetting that earlier this year was the Woolloomooloo fires as well. So I really do feel that sometimes those people get forgotten. But go get the disclaimer done, mate, and see if you can say it without having a little hiccup.
Well, the disclaimer is not just about those people that are watching the vision, but of course our podcast comes out tomorrow, and you can't see the vision, so you're relying on word of mouth. And of course, our general advice disclaimer, the information on this podcast is to be regarded as general advice, and your personal objectives, needs and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. We always advise and recommend you seek personal, professional and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs before making financial, property and investment decisions. And as we say, what we do and what we try to give you some tips and not influence, that's wrong, but give you our opinions and thoughts about what's going on with the property market. That is just very general. And if you're looking for specifics, then get someone that you that is professional and someone that you can rely on and someone who you trust to assist you with that. And I've certainly had some situations of late that I've had to really say to a client, I really think before you go any further, you need to go and get some assistance, some professional advice and professional direction before you jump the gun. And I had a classic example talking about that and talking about professional assistance. I had a situation the other day where a client was advised that they needed to get their contract was subject to finance, but they needed to get, the agent was asking them to, they wanted an indication from the broker that they're all good for finance. Now, the contract was subject to finance, end of story. And where I'm coming from with that is that the ability, and I've gone and made this inquiry, I've checked with bank managers, I've checked with brokers, and very broad. So this is not just a Geraldton thing or a Perth thing. So I've gone across the board with a number of our contacts that we have between us. And the general commentary is that the ability to go and get a pre-approval before you go to get buy a property, that is not a priority with the lending institutions at the moment. The priority, because they're so busy, is getting the formal finance approvals done and dusted, and they're taking time. So if you're intending to go out and buy a property, particularly a first home buyer, or anybody for that matter, but particularly a first home buyer, at least discuss with a finance broker or a banker with regard to what roughly you can afford to buy. Not necessarily a pre-approval, but giving you an indication, because there's no sense in buying a $600,000 or a $560,000 property when your ability to borrow is only $420,000. and you don't have the other 150,000 to put in to top up the difference plus fees, then you need to have a good understanding of where you're at before you start to, getting too carried away. So it's just a factor that is worth remembering when you're out there buying. Which gets me on to another point. The bank mum and dad, is it on the rise? And the whisper is, it is. The whisper is, it is. And we've been saying this for a while, but what's occurring is that people are a little bit more cashed up. They are trying to assist their children, their adult children, when they're trying to buy a home. They've got the resources. However, and I have discussed this with a lawyer friend of mine, it's really important to ensure that you have something in a structured way when it comes to what that arrangement is. And when we say what that arrangement is, if we're going to lend some money, are we lending money or are we gifting money? And if we're going to gift it, is that going to impact on other family members down the track when we're talking about wills and when we all don't last on this earth forever? So what's going to happen if you've helped one family member to buy a home? What's happening with the other family members and things of this nature? And I have certainly seen firsthand situations where it become a little bit ugly and creates a little bit of animosity because, hang on, what about me? So they are things that are occurring, and it certainly seems to be something that is certainly indicating. And reading the other day, I read an article where it was suggesting that it's certainly becoming a bigger factor in the buy. And people have perhaps got a little bit more money because they're not spending overseas. People have retired, they've got a bit of a surplus, and perhaps they've decided, well, instead of we're spending that 20 or 30,000, whatever the case would be, that we're going to use for an overseas trip, we're going to help Johnny and put a bigger deposit in towards a house. Have you seen that? Heard that similar?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just when you first mentioned that, TV, it cast my mind back to my first property purchase. And, my parents helped me and other family members out.
Oh, no.
What?
They helped you? Unbelievable. I did it all on my Larry Lonesome.
There was no gifting, or like they didn't give us the money and say, there you go, put that towards it. But certainly using equity that they had places, then they would effectively be a guarantor for us by guaranteeing that level of equity to the bank. So, we're very, very fortunate to have parents that were able to and then were prepared to do that for us. So that was, and that's obviously going back a good 20 something years ago. But in addition to that, I think it is. It's very common these days. It's very prevalent, and I do know that these days it's not as easy as the mum and dad just signing a form of the banks or whatever. They fully have to go away, get their own independent advice, sit down with a lawyer for somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. The lawyer has to run through the bank's documentation and make sure that they're fully informed and all that, which is fine. There's no problem in doing that. But then there's always two angles to it. And the two angles are, well, what is the liability of mum and dad to the bank, and how legally does that work? And then the second side of it is, outside of the bank, what happens back home, like what you said, between the family members and who gets what, and what happens if something changes along the way, and then one family member has not benefited as well or as much as the other family member. So it all, like anything, or like this, it always starts with the right intentions. But I've seen them go pear-shaped as well, but probably less than the ones that go right.
I think too that, I certainly, and I put my finance hat on here, albeit a long time ago, but there used to be quite a common practice where you made mention of the two, where the parents would go guarantors. However, what's going on at the moment is that the guarantors are not. There's a lot of messing around. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of other things to be done. However, with the mum and dads, if they've got the resources, which obviously appears to be the case, and they've got some savings they can help, That's a much easier, and as long as it's structured, a much, much better process. I will just let you know, though, as you know, we get people making comment, and one in particular happens to be the Community Bank Geraldton manager, and he made comment that the Community Bank Geraldton will find time to do pre-approvals, but he's also aware that other financiers are struggling with workload and timeframes. So he confirmed that what we were talking about with regard to that. So he's also made mention about Bank of Mum and Dad. He is suggesting, and this is Jody, as most banks will avoid taking guarantees wherever possible. So much better for mum and dad to finance what shortfall their child has in the purchase. So that is, that's coming from a banker, that it does exist. I've certainly seen it, and I've certainly had people ask me the question. And get back to our disclaimer, my advice is, hey, first things first, go to your accountant to see what needs to be done. And you may recall, I don't know whether you were a guest at the time or you were my co-host or not, but we had a client on here where I put together and assisted them, and they built their home. In fact, they've moved into their home. She was a regular follower of our program. I don't know whether she is, Laura, but I've just found out that she just moved into her new home that she built, and she got the grant and everything. And one of our guests, Casey Green, was assisted her with the construction of her home. So I have had first-hand experience with the mum and dad scenario, and it's been I've certainly, from what I've observed, they've been a success. But it's important. I can't emphasise it enough. It's really important that it's properly structured. You get proper advice. You get professional advice, and you do things to cater for my favourite little two words: cater for the what if. You've got to cater for the what if, and that's really, really important. Hey,
I do recall Laura building her house and everything, and I was pretty sure that we were meant to go to the slab party, mate, but I think we must have
I think it's only just happened. I think the house is only a week or two, so I've got to follow up and just see how Laura's going, and Pete.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, you do that. Yeah, I remember that now. Hey, the other question. I've got a question because I'm looking at time once again. I had a question asked of me the other day where a client, the question she asked was, to what point can she put special conditions? Because what she was saying to me was that she was told not to put too many special conditions in the contract because it'll scare the seller and they'll look at another buyer. The way I respond to that is, you're the one spending the money, and if that seller and that agent is not prepared to assist you and support you, then I would be concerned. And because most of the conditions that the buyer was talking to me about, I would consider them standard. So I'm talking about termite, building report, electrical and plumbing. Now, certainly in this particular case, she asked me about asbestos, and I said, you can put that in your building report to raise that. But the question I had with her then is, okay, if asbestos is identified, what then? What are you expecting? So you need to be sure what questions you're going to ask or what those conditions are going to be. And depending on what condition you want, what are you expecting from the seller, for example, should that condition, in this case, asbestos be identified? But it was an interesting question as to why, should I not put all those conditions in there? Because personally, very much you should be. I think it's one of those priorities that you've got to be careful. Oh, we've got other sellers. Well, other buyers. Well, I'm sorry, but who's spending the money?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's a pretty common thing, though, that I've heard just over the last 12 months TV, and there's been that many buyers. It's obviously more attractive for a seller to have a contract of sale that's going to be as least restrictive with minimum risk. So just a cash offer, no conditions, 30-day settlement, that's a bit of a dream and doesn't happen all that often. So I understand what an agent or what a seller might be saying that for, but the buyer's not there to please them. The buyer's there to hopefully buy the property, but they need to protect themselves as well. So would you leave off those conditions? And also on the basis that You'd only put those conditions on if there was a genuine reason for it. You're not going to do it just because you've got nothing better to do. So if you require certainty around the conditions that you're putting on there, would you therefore just proceed with the offer without the conditions? Absolutely not.
No. I agree. I'm going to only stick to the one question tonight, only because of the fact that I'm looking at time. But the other thing in our little topics this week, which I really, really made me have a bit of a giggle, the Shittiest Town Award. Now, I'm not sure whether this was, seriously, I'm not sure whether this was, I mean, there's lots of awards that are given out at different times for different things. And there's the builders, the construction industry has awards and the real estate industry has awards. And so, but the Shittiest Town Award, I mean, really. And do you want to know who won it?
Tell me.
Kalgoorlie. And they're proud of it. And they're even better. They've won 3 years in a row. It's a hat trick.
Who gives out this award? Who runs the award?
Oh, look, I don't know. And I'm struggling today because tonight was a bit of a rush, to be really honest. And I've been out busy. Our phone system went down. Don't even wind me up about that. So I've sort of been a call centre. And so it was a mad panic thinking, my God, I've got to get it organised for our podcast. So I had all the things ready to go, but my information that I've normally got at my fingertips, I'm scrambling here at the moment. So please excuse me. But I do know that I think Geraldton and Bunbury got equal third or second and third, whatever it was. But I think it's very much a tongue-in-cheek, and I will follow it up for you. As I say, I've been scrambling a bit trying to find all the different information. I had the headings, but I just thought what an award that is. The Shittiest Town Award, they've won it 3 years in a row. So I'll have to find out what the criteria was.
Got a hat trick.
Yeah. Hey, golf. Now, you're probably wondering about this little cap that I've got on. These are our new caps. I've got one for you, but you are not. Well, I don't know whether you get one now because you're not coming up. I thought I was looking forward to playing a game with you. I said to the club captain, no. My co-host is coming up to have a hit with me on Friday. So we've got the Geraldton Amateur Open. As you know, I'm up in Geraldton at the moment. And the Geraldton Amateur Open, which Champion Bay Settlements actually sponsor, and it's some 40 years that we've been looking after the event or that weekend in some way, shape or form. But it's the Geraldton Amateur Open at the Geraldton Golf Club. I actually played last Thursday, and the course is looking schmick. But the numbers, the club captain sent me, Rob Christo, he sent me an update yesterday. And there's something like 130 people playing on the 2 days, like both days. So it's Saturday and Sunday is the stroke event. So Saturday and Sunday, because the long weekend this weekend in Perth, or in WA. And there's a huge number of visitors coming from a range of clubs. So that's looking. And then on the Friday, we've got Property Avenue WA in conjunction with Champion Bay and Dedicated Property Management, which are our two respective visitors. We're sponsors. So that's why we've got the little hats, and there's over 80 players playing on that day as well. So you're going to miss out on all the fun. And I've been telling them all about how hard you hit the ball and
how straight.
He's not very tall, but gee, he can hit a ball, And now you tell me, no, you can't make it. So I'll have to go. I have to find a friend.
I have to get some of my priorities right. To be honest with you, I really do. I reached out to Dave Clare, our good mate Dave Clare, earlier today. In fact, the early hours this morning when both him and I were working, and there was just a little bit of banter. And I said, mate, I've just got to find some time you can't just work it's basically work or family time, but you need to fit in a few boys, a few mates in there and a bit of golf and that sort of stuff. So I need to get a bit better at managing my time.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We've now gone, for those, obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to be able to see this, but we've now got our own little pens. And we've got the sponsors there, the sponsors of Property Avenue WA, which is Champion Bay Settlements and Dedicated Property Management. And we've got another step. And we've got a stubby holder. So I must give one of those to make sure that our people that have contributed to our commentary tonight, Joe and Simon last week, and Jody Bevan, and I'll make sure they all get a. I've only got a handful of caps, but I'll make sure they get a pen and a stubby holder. That'll be from you and I, okay? So there you go. But the golf this weekend should be fun. I think it'll be. It's always a great weekend, but the numbers are going to be sensational. The weather is going to be superb. 23, 24 degrees every day. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you know. How good is the world? Really, truly. Can't wait. I will have to go to the bank and get some gold coin out, probably a lot of gold coin, because I think there might be more going out than coming in. But who cares? I'm looking forward to the weekend. Should be great. So if you're travelling and if you are one of the golfers that are coming here for the weekend, please travel safe and look forward to, if I haven't met you, mate, and you do follow the show, come up and say hello if I don't say hello to you first. But there you go. So that's this weekend at the Geraldton Golf Club. Should be fantastic fun. Jody Bevan's just made a suggestion that we Zoom Oscar for the golf weekend. We just Zoom him to see how he's going and have a Zoom chat. So the probably headlines downtown.
Is JB playing golf? I didn't think he was.
JB doesn't play golf. No, he reckons he doesn't have the temperament for golf.
I know. Hey, I just came up with a great idea. I'm sure he's going to love it.
Yes.
Why doesn't he take my dedicated property management place and represent dedicated property management for the day on Friday? I'm sure he'd love that.
You used to. Jody Bevan said to me that they've got a special on $2 coins on Thursday. 50 coins for $100.
Mate, that is that. You know,
I'll take him up on that. Yeah, I might do that. That sounds like a good deal, doesn't it? 50 coins for $100.
Well, tell him to bring them along to the golf course, and he can take my place on Friday. Because
I'll let him know. Simon says, "Thanks, Simon. Good to hear you, bud. I'd like to be on your show one day with his. Oh, there you go. He's trying to do his property adventure, and he'd like to be on the show one day looking for his property."
Yeah, right. Okay. Well,
I'll have to catch up with Simon when we're in Perth. I'm due back there next week sometime. I will have to try and give Simon a hoy. Hey, it's great for people to come back with a little bit of banter. I think that's fantastic. Hey, the other thing being, and for those that do want to get in touch with us and you're not doing the live show, then by all means contact us through Instagram. We've got a Twitter account. You can send us an email on any of our via our Facebook pages. Or you've got my mobile number 0437993294, and any messages, any questions you've got, you're always welcome to give us a shout. Except when the phone goes down in my office, and I'm non-stop on the phone. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with the headlines? I like this one. How to talk retirement savings with your spouse. That was the Wall Street Journal. I thought I must have a read of that. Australia's biggest pensioner postcodes have a regional flavour, and I've tagged that to have a look at that further and investigate that a little bit, because that's an interesting concept with what we've been talking about in the past. And so the biggest pensioner postcodes have a regional flavour, so they're not going to the city, they're looking at regional areas throughout Australia. So we'll have a look and see where that's at when it comes to WA as well. Does that include WA?
Awesome.
Oh, here's the article about Kalgoorlie. Kalgoorlie gets the. Here it is. Here, I knew I'd find it. Kalgoorlie voted 2021's shittiest town in Western Australia by Shit Towns of Australia readers for the third year. That's the headline.
Shit Town of Australia readers.
This is the headline. Kalgoorlie voted 2021 shittiest town in Western Australia by Shit Towns of Australia readers for the third year in a row.
And Shit Towns of Australia readers, that's obviously a pretty credible organisation.
It's called, with the title of my website, Shit Towns of Australia. So it's a web, that's an existing. Yeah, you can imagine, can't you? My God. So there you go. There's some of the headlines. Of course, there's a fair bit about cryptocurrency, which you don't even want to know about. And there was also an article I saw the other day. Did you see the place where the the gingerbread house, the ultimate COVID work from home gym. Did you see that?
No. What are you talking about?
They had in the heart of Perth. They embarked on a mission to restore the partially completed residence in the heart of Perth. Their vision has transformed their near uninhabitable home in Money Street into a stunning 3-level residence, which doubles as the ultimate COVID work from home setup.
Oh.
Yep. And they called it the gingerbread house. Yeah. So it had 15 bedrooms, but no kitchen, no bathroom, nothing. It had a working toilet, and that's about it. And they've done it all up and looks magnificent. You have a look at the photos. Go to realestate.com.au.
Yeah.
And have a look at the Perth gingerbread house. So, yeah, lots of the inheritance generation preparing for a jump in transfer of wealth. So we're now getting to a level whereby I think we're suggesting that the people, the generation that are getting now, which generation? I think it's the baby boomer generation, are considered the generation of wealth. And so in the next 20 to 30 years, we'll see the biggest intergenerational wealth handover in history.
TV, can you ring your bell? Ring your bell on yourself. Okay, that means it must be time for the if question.
Oh, it is. And it's now, I told you, if you could go back in time, what age would you consider going back to?
Oh.
There you go.
Not too far, actually, for me. I'd go back to 40.
40? Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. What about you, mate?
Why would you go back to 40?
I reckon I would just make some decisions a bit differently so far as the future for myself and my beautiful family. I reckon I just think I would make some different decisions, and that would have us in a different position today. So I don't have any regrets or anything, but I reckon I'd just make a few different decisions. That's all.
I remember reading an article sometime, and I wish I had kept it. It was in what the paper known as the Daily News. Were you around with the Daily News?
I was.
And the Daily News, I had an article, and they said, imagine if we lived in reverse. So you knew what you knew now at my stage in life, and you'd like to think you've got your finances sorted and you know where you're at, and you work your way the other way. Imagine that would be. But yeah, I'm probably more the 30s. I'd probably like to be, if I was going to go back in time, I'd probably go back as a 30-year-old, or in my 30s, where I had my boys in my life and my wife in my life, and again, I have no regrets. We were super busy with sport and things of that nature, but I'd love to know some of the things. And would I do a lot of things different? Not a lot, but there's probably some things that I would have liked to have been able to tell my boys then. Not that I don't tell them now, but yeah, there's a range of things that I'd love to do. But yep, no, I'm pretty happy where we're going. Hey, it's come to an end. We've done another show. We've cracked another hour. It's been fabulous, mate. Absolute. I understand how busy you are, and I appreciate the fact you can't come up here to have a hit on Friday, but I'm sure we'll do it again some other time. Been a pleasure for all those that contributed. Thank you so very, very much. We love having. It's really, really beneficial when we get a bit of feedback like that. We're really trying to work on. We're going to have a get together when we get back to Perth and have a chat and see what we can do to improve. If you've got any thoughts about that, please let us know. We're not offended in any way, shape, or form. We're only a little small exercise, but I think we can do our marketing better when we have a bit more time up our sleeve. But remember, we're available on the podcast tomorrow, and we welcome you to do your little bit. Have fun. If those that are playing golf, wherever it may be, doesn't necessarily be Geraldton, have a great time. For those that are playing other sport, have a great time. Long weekend, lots of people travelling. Please, please, please travel safe. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Thanks, OD.